Thanks for that final time session. You need to take your questions, microphones either side, put your hand up to one of them.
Afternoon, Pat. Are you in a position to name a team yet?
Not yet, unfortunately. I think the selectors are going to meet about now, but come down, have a final look at the wicket and get around to the boys this half.
What's the sort of big thing outstanding from your point of view in terms of picking a team for this side?
Probably biggest difference from last week is spinner, whether that comes into the equation, and waiting for a couple of boys to see how they pull up. But at this stage, looks like everyone's going to be good.
Thank you.
Speaking of the spinner part, was there any time during the last test when England were piling on the runs that you felt the need for a spinner, or you missed having a special spinner?
Would have loved a leggy and offie, a few other options. Might have made a difference. You never quite know. I think in those moments, maybe a change of pace is helpful. Obviously, I had Trav there to use a couple of times. You never quite know, but someone like Nathan Lyon does that role really well when, over the last however long.
And just you've spoken a lot about how much you've enjoyed the captaincy bit in terms of the problem solving, but just captaining 6 tests in such a packed schedule, is there something called captaincy fatigue at all? Like, have you felt it at all at some point? Maybe I just have to make too many decisions.
Maybe, but I haven't felt it so far. I know coming into the series, I felt like 6 was going to be really busy, but no, it's all been pretty good. Obviously, there's some challenges and some moments you scratch your head, but I feel in a really good place physically, and in terms of the captaincy, I feel like I'm learning new things every game, and it's been manageable.
David Warner mentioned yesterday he didn't really feel he'd seen Baz ball. What's your feeling about seeing it as a captain? Do you feel you have?
Didn't know Davey said that. I think there's been this series has pretty much had everything. I think you've seen really slow passages of play, say at Lords, where both teams really dried up the run rate, and other times where it's accelerated, and you've seen both teams have batters batting with the tail with 9 fielders out the fence, which I've never seen in Test cricket before. So I feel like it's had it all. So I don't know what the definition is of it, but it feels like this series had a lot of kind of really good cricket, but also it's a lot of cricket that has been a bit different to traditional Test cricket.
Pat, just a question on Cam, whose position might be vulnerable depending on how you line up this week. How do you view how he's gone on this trip? He obviously came off a big IPL. He's learning to be an all-format cricketer now, something you've had to go through as well. How do you see where he's sat at the moment and perhaps the challenges he faces now as his career evolves?
Yeah, I guess the biggest difference is, someone like Marshy's been given a chance through injury and has been brilliant. So that's probably been the biggest difference. I think when we come back here to the Oval, he bowled brilliantly here in the World Test Championship. And since then, the way the series has gone, and obviously missed a test through injury, but it's probably been a bit more stop-start in terms of he's been used as kind of bowling bounces at times. Sometimes the innings have been quite short and he hasn't bowled too much, so it probably hasn't kind of bowled as much as perhaps we thought. And in terms of batting, again, there's been little snippets where he's looked really good and other times where he hasn't managed to kind of get through that initial phase. So he's still young. I think most of our team are basically into their 30s. He's probably the only one from last game who was kind of still starting out. He's played 20 odd tests now, but like any batter, he's you'd think his best years are ahead of him, and for someone like Cam, he's doing all his learning in international cricket. It's not easy.
Pat, I know yesterday there was plenty of talk with about retirements and whatnot, but not specifically speaking about those players, but just generally talking, in 2.5 years' time, come the next Ashes, and especially in 4 years' time, it's probably fair to say this Australian team will look very different. Do you feel like Australian cricket has learned from, I guess, the challenges from the mid-2000s to be able to transform this team into the next era when that time comes around in the next couple of years?
Potentially. It's a hard one. I certainly don't want to rush anyone out of the door. I think this is about the 4th Ashes series where Jimmy Anderson said it's going to be his last one, so you never quite know. You know, it is just an age. Some of these guys might be around here in 4 years and still, being at the top level. So we'll see, but it's always a conversation. I think in cricket we're lucky you've got white ball cricket where you can kind of have a soft entry for a lot of the guys, giving them exposure to international cricket. But yeah, it's something the selectors talk about. But I mean, really, you try and pick your best 11 each week.
And do you in your role as captain keep a close eye on Shield? I know you don't get much of a chance to go back to it these days, but actually see what's coming through. And have you got an idea of sort of the next crop of, say, guys in their early mid-20s that are likely to come into this team probably during your captaincy era?
I wouldn't say I keep a really close eye on Shield cricket, but our selectors certainly do. When they're home, they're travelling around, and they've got really open communication with heaps of Shield players. But I think you saw kind of during IPL time this year, we had an Aussie A team that went over to New Zealand. That was a really young side. Last year, took an Aussie A side over to Sri Lanka. I think they're really important to us. And even an Ashes tour like this one, we've got 6 or 7 guys that are on the bench that I think could pretty seamlessly step straight in and do a great job. I think when the time comes, it should be fairly seamless.
Pat, can I ask you about everyone's least favourite topic, overrates? It cost you guys in 2021 for the World Test Championship final. It feels like could have the potential to do that again, depending on how it pans out with this series. At the end of this series, do you need to have a good look at how slowly I know this isn't just you guys, it's England as well, but you need to have a look at how slowly you're bowling your overs.
Potentially, yeah. This series has been a bit of an outlier, I think. We haven't had any overrate sanctions over the last few years until this series. So, it feels like this one's played at a bit of a different pace. Something we speak about in ODI cricket as well. When you're setting fields and the time can run out pretty quickly. So, it's something I think we need to speak about.
Why do you think it has been going at a slower pace?
I think the amount of field changes, really. It feels like there's different plans every second over or every over, every couple of balls, and one batter might have a totally different plan to another one. So there's lots of field movement. There's a lot more fast bowling overs than there ever has been. And no Nath Lyon. A combination of those things as well. I think this series is kind of maybe just a little bit more high pressure, and not only the fielding side, but you see the batters just taking that little bit of extra time.
Pat, you spoke about learning as a captain through the course of the series. Do you think you've improved as a captain?
I hope so. Certainly been exposed to more. I think both teams have seen some patches of play which I haven't seen before. As we've said before, having 9 fielders out. So hopefully you can adapt a bit more and a bit quicker. For this week. So hopefully I'm a bit better. And I don't think I was at my best last week, but hopefully better this week.
What was it last week that you felt meant you weren't at your best, or which periods of the game in particular?
I think that day 2 middle session was where the game really ran. In some regards, happy that we tried a few different things. I think it's easy just to let it really flow by not changing things. So happy that we changed a few things, but it didn't come off. So I think revisiting a couple of those plans, what we'd do differently, and I'm always one for focusing on what we do really well. So I think maybe just shifting that focus at times back to us.
Pat, have you thought back to 4 years ago when you were 2-1 up and it finished 2-2? Could go either way this match and the outlook of the series, I guess. Have you thought back to anything that you might want to do differently or to change?
I think the good thing is it's a really similar group to 2019. After that, Manchester was a big win. To retain the Ashes, which we hadn't done for a long time, off the back of Headingley, even Lords, where we probably missed a trick last series. So I felt like that was, a big kind of exclamation mark on the end of that series with still one test match to play. It feels really different here. This group's been really motivated to win the series. So, we know that it wasn't our best week last week, and at the end of the game, it was a bit of a, pat on the back, well done, we've retained the Ashes, but really feels like the job's not done.
Pat, do you feel that your team's had enough credit for where you are in the series so far? But obviously, a lot of the discourse has been dictated by what England are doing because of the way they're playing at a slightly different style of Test cricket these days.
I think that's what makes playing overseas quite tough, but, a lot of the conversation is on the home team. I've been really proud with how we've gone. Winning the World Test Championship over here, we've lost one Test match out of 5 matches, winning 3. That's a really impressive tour, away tour. I'm really proud with how the group's gone. To retain it's not easy. Again, it's been 20 odd years since we've won it, so that's the goal. But in some regards, I still think our best cricket's ahead of us, which is exciting.
Hey, Pat. Obviously, Test captaincy is something that very clear you're going to hang on to. There was a bit of oscillation in terms of what you might do as white ball captain or not be white ball captain from the time you were appointed in 2021. How have your thoughts evolved on that, I guess, through this tour and the workload and the fact that, some of the white ball guys will be preparing for a South Africa trip as soon as the series is over, and then there's one World Cup and then a T20 World Cup after that?
It hasn't really changed at all. To be honest, I see the white ball as very much we've got a World Cup, ODI World Cup. It's a big campaign, so we'll build towards that. I think the selectors, I know the selectors have been really clear as well in that. I'm a bowler first in that team, so if we need to manage some of those games leading into the World Cup, that takes precedence over, say, the continuity of being captain every single game. So we'll manage that, but again, there's a great team around us of players and staff. So, while I'm the captain and it's got a bit bigger workload, it's manageable.
Pat, Michael Neser has been part of the squad for 9 Ashes tests in England, and is he in contention? And there are some people on social media who are big fans of him. He's quite the cult hero. So I just want to ask on their behalf, how is he just been unlucky to not get that Ashes go, and is he in with a chance?
Of course, part of the conversation. I'm a big fan of Ness as well. He's one of our favourites. It's tough. You can only fit 11 players into a team. There's nothing more he can do. He's scored heaps of runs, taken heaps of wickets. So we know his class, and he's just really unlucky. So again, he's been part of the conversation for the last few Test matches for sure. When you build out an Ashes squad, you're expecting some injuries. We haven't really had that in the fast bowling department. So that's probably worked against him. But we love Ness. We love what he brings to a team, and hopefully, there's plenty more games in him, in the baggy green. Thanks.